So we clicked on live. We've got a couple of people joining us. Good evening. Give people a chance to log on because we've just turned 6:30. For those of you coming in now, so those of you that might not know me, my name's Rosie Milsom. I'm the charity manager at Caldwell Lyme Co. We're a small medical research charity funding research, of course, into Lyme disease. And I'm joined here tonight by Deborah Bircham and Steve Schutz from Astriid charity. I'm going to get them to tell you a little bit more about the charity in a moment. Just whilst people are coming in, if you guys have any questions tonight for Deborah and Steve, you feel free to put them either in the Q&A function or the chat function. If you're familiar with Zoom or you've been to our events before, you'll know where they are, but depending on if you're watching it on a laptop or mobile, if you kind of either move your mouse down to the bottom of the screen or tap on your mobile screen, you should see those options come up. And so feel free to pop questions in there as we go along, and we will go through those at the end of the event. Well, not the end, depends how far we get with the other info, but we'll come to those and make sure that anything you guys want to know has been answered. So I think we will make a start. So as I say, joined by Steve Schutz, you're the CEO, is that right, Steve?
I am the CEO, yeah, absolutely.
Exec. And Deborah Bircham, you're a candidate coordinator, aren't you, Deborah?
That's right.
So
yes.
Thanks so much for joining me this evening for this free talk. I know it'll be really valuable to a lot of our supporters, so I really appreciate you giving up your evening to be here with me. Steve, I don't know if we want to start with you, and perhaps you can tell us a bit about Astriid as a charity, you know, how you were founded and kind of a general overview of what it is that you guys do and what you want to achieve.
Sure thing. Well, look, first of all, let me say thank you, Rosie. Thanks you to you. Thanks to Deborah as well. But thanks to those that are listening today. It's great to have the chance to tell our story, to reach more people, and to hopefully find a way of connecting with them as well. So, yeah, I'm the CEO of the charity. I lord it about with that title on the basis that I'm the brother of the founder of the charity. And my brother David was my younger brother. He founded the charity just about 4 years ago. And he founded it as a result of his own life experience. So here was a guy, he was a Royal Naval officer. He rose to the rank of commander, always wanted to be in the Navy. That was his career choice from a very early age. Rose to the rank of commander, got made an OBE by the Queen for services to the Navy. And then he went off into business, having retired in his mid-40s from the services to go and be a director of the CBI. Then 10 days after his 50th birthday, he was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a stage 4 cancer, kidney cancer, renal cancer, which then progressed to his liver, to his lung, and then eventually to his brain. And we lost him about 3 years later, which was around about 3 years ago now, so in 2018. But not before he'd had something of a life-changing experience. Obviously, the illness itself changed his life, but so did his experience as somebody who had a terrific range of skills and experience. He was very well regarded, had a fantastic network. He'd worked in government, he'd worked in high levels of the services, but he found it impossible to connect again with work once he'd been diagnosed. And he used to say that his diagnosis had turned him from being valuable to valueless overnight as a result of the cancer diagnosis. And as inspirational as he was, as dynamic as he was, it was something that was very hard to deal with and to countenance. So he set up a charity. We called it Astriid. Astriid stands for Available Skills to Train, Refresh, Innovate, Improve and Develop, IID, 2 I's. And it was a charity that connects people like him who have a long-term health condition, and it can be cancer, but it can be heart disease or a stroke, it could be ME, it could be MS, it can certainly be Lyme disease, it can be a disability, physical, or somebody on the mental health spectrum. It's all of those individuals who we look to help and connect with jobs that are available for that type of individual. Can't work full time, can't travel in and out of an office, can't spend lots of time commuting, instead just want to contribute their skills and experience in a work setting to make the most of the skills that they've got. And that was the charity that was founded in 2018, beginning of, called Astriid.
It's such an amazing backstory, and you know, well, what a legacy to leave, you know, from your brother. And tell us a bit more about, you know, how it is, this kind of services and programs that you provide, and how it is that you make a difference to those people who are looking for work that do have some kind of long-term health condition.
Yeah, sure. So somebody who's maybe watching this webinar now, somebody who fits into one of those categories, and I say it can be any long-term illness. We don't ask what the illness is. We just ask people to vouch for the fact that they fit the category. Somebody with a disability for sure, or who's struggling with mental health issues. They're all welcome, as indeed are their carers as well, because it's often the case that carers of individuals also struggle to connect back with work again once they found themselves in that often unwanted situation of being a carer. And what someone will do is they'll join the Astriid community by registering on our page. It's free to join. We never charge our candidates anything at any point in the process. And they sign up and they answer a series of drop-down questions. My brother's view, and absolutely my view as well, is this is all about what you can do. We're not interested in what you can't do anymore, or what you used to be able to do but you feel you're going to struggle with. We want to know what you can do. So we ask you for your superpowers, for the transferable skills you may have from your previous job that you want to contribute back to the world of work. And you register by answering these these questions in these drop-down boxes. And then when you're registered, you get contacted by one of our fabulous candidate coordination team. And we're looking at one of them, Deborah. Deborah was the second member of that team. It's led by a lady called Trish Clark. All of us are people with managing chronic illness. All of us have got experience ourselves, lived experience ourselves of chronic illness. And you'll be talking to Deborah in a moment about hers. But we're all individuals who I'd like to think are empathetic to an understanding of the situation that people have when they come to us to register. And the idea is that having registered on the platform, we then connect you with companies that we are talking to all the time who have got a need for staff, need for personnel, have got a desire to get hold of people who've got long-term health conditions or disabilities, and they create opportunities and positions. They might be an assignment or a project or a short-term contract. It might be paid, it might be voluntary. They create those opportunities, and we simply act as a platform that puts the two together. So we're often referred to as match.com for sick people who want to work. And that's a sobriquet that I'm not unhappy with. I think it brings a smile to people's face anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And it's an analogy that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and I think as well, your point there about it being a service that's available for carers is a really important distinction to make. There's not just those that's anybody that perhaps looks after somebody with a chronic illness and has had to take time off work, who need to now kind of find something to fit in around perhaps their carer's schedule, or they've been out of work for some time and they're not sure about their skills. So it's such a wide range of people that can benefit from your support.
And it's anybody whose ambition has been thwarted. None of us look for those illnesses that get visited upon us. Nobody looks for that job of being perhaps that unpaid carer. They may not even want it, but we all still have ambition, no matter where we are on the career spectrum or the life spectrum. We all have ambition and things we want to fulfill. And there, as I say, we tread in the path of my brother, who, despite being given 2 years to live, as he was when he was age 50, he lived for a third year. And he often said at the end of his time, he looked at that period of time as being enormously important, that he had Astriid, he had the charity, he had something to live for, something to contribute, a legacy that he wanted to leave for the future generation. And it was very hard not to be compelled to get involved and to join it, really.
Yeah, thank you for filling us in on that, Steve. So coming over to you, Deborah. So those of you who may have seen the blog that we did last month, I think it was last month, where we had a kind of interview with Deborah, might be kind of aware of her situation already. But Deborah, you are somebody that actually suffers with chronic Lyme disease yourself. And it'd be great if you could tell us a bit more about how you found Astriid, how you came to find Astriid, but also how you then came to work for Astriid, and what they've done for you, and what you hope they could perhaps in time do for someone in a similar position to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I mean, I've I had quite a few chronic health problems in my life, so I've got quite a bit of experience that's quite useful in this role. I can empathise with people in a lot of situations, from chronic pain and chronic fatigue and multiple surgeries and things. But then in 2018, I probably hit my biggest health challenge when I was well, I was working in woodlands across the UK, and I now know that I must have been bitten by a tick at that point and contracted Lyme disease. So I became extremely ill, as people with Lyme disease will know, as only someone who's suffered with Lyme disease can possibly know. And like many people with Lyme disease, unfortunately, I wasn't diagnosed at the time. I didn't get the treatment. And so that has, it's now mutated, or developed into mast cell activation syndrome as well, which I know a lot of people in the Lyme community also suffer with. So yes, it wasn't actually until Christmas last year that I finally got the tests and diagnosed with Lyme and Bartonella and Babesia. So 3.5 years too late, really. But yes, I'm still quite poorly and still having treatment. But really, throughout that experience, I mean, I've always worked, even though I was poorly before. I worked as a museum curator initially, and then in engagement and events for charities, and loved my jobs, and also trained as a psychotherapist and a coach. And so really, the experience of losing my job through my ill health with Lyme disease was absolutely devastating. It was probably the hardest thing to come to terms with. And as Steve has described for David, obviously, I also felt that I'd lost my purpose and lost my role and my identity, really. It's a really devastating thing to go through. So I know that a lot of people in the Lyme community will have experienced that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people will identify with that feeling. You think sometimes, I've thought to myself before, back when in the days of office working, I spend more time with my work colleagues than I do with my family. Work is such a big part of your life. If you're a full-time worker, even if you're part-time, it's such a big part of your life, and therefore your identity. It's what people are, where are you from, what do you do, and if you're somebody that has been so invested in your career, or even if you haven't, like I say, it's a part of an everyday thing. And to lose that, especially when you haven't invested in it, I can absolutely empathize with how difficult that must be.
It's a very, very difficult situation, and it does leave you feeling very unsure about what your place is, and you miss the social life, as you say, and you miss all of that. And obviously it has a big financial impact on people's lives as well. And I was left thinking, how was I ever going to be able to work again now I'd become so poorly? And then I heard the marvelous Miranda Hart talking about Astriid, as she has done, and spoken about us. And I thought, well, what's Astriid? So I looked them up and I registered. And then lovely Trish was my candidate coordinator, and she got in touch with me and we had a lovely chat. And initially she asked me if I would volunteer as a coach for Astriid, which I did. And then I was very fortunate to be offered the position as a candidate coordinator for Astriid. And I now combine that with coaching. I still do some coaching and coordinating for my candidates. And I absolutely love doing it, because I love the feeling that I'm able to help people. I bring all of my experiences, not just from my health, but my work as well. And just knowing that I can understand what people are going through. There's sort of really nothing that any of my candidates have thrown at me yet that I haven't thought, yep, I know where you are with that. I've experienced that too. And to be able to say to candidates that there is support available through Astriid is really marvellous, because I know from their feedback how valuable that is for them, and how pleased they are that Astriid is there offering the services that we are to people.
That's so great. You're such a great example and kind of success story of what can happen when you do get kind of the right support. So tell me more about how you look after the candidates that come through to you, and what your kind of role entails.
Okay, well, I think through the magic of technology, Rosie, you might be able to share a graphic with us at this moment.
I will attempt that now.
Yeah, let's fingers crossed that works.
Here it is.
So one of our marvellous candidates, actually, who's a bit of a whiz with IT, has volunteered with us, and she's made this marvelous graphic for us, which just shows really the different aspects of the candidate journey and the different options that are available. And it sort of starts really at the 12 o'clock position with the one-to-one conversation with a candidate coordinator. So once people are registered on our website, as Steve said, their names get passed to the coordination team, and we get in touch with them to arrange to have a chat on the phone. And we really get to know our candidates and get to understand them through that call and what their needs are and what they're looking for. And then it all grows from there, really. And there's kind of three general types of candidates that come to us. And the first ones are people who know what they want. They've got qualifications, they've got a career, they can still do the career that they've always done. And they really just are looking for a job that they can do around their illness. And so for those candidates, we almost jump straight down to the sort of 6 o'clock position really and go into a job search. So we're looking to then match them up in the ways that Steve described with some of the jobs that are generated through Astriid and through our contacts. And also we have a search engine facility that does like a meta search of the job opportunities out there for people. So people in that position, we look to then find how we can match them up. And there's also a newsletter that comes out every fortnight with different job opportunities in. So people who are ready to go, that's their pathway. And then the second type of person is probably, I would say, the majority of our candidates, in that they used to do a job and then they became poorly and now they can't do the job that they used to do anymore. But they have all these transferable skills, as Steve was describing. So then all these other circles kind of come into play, and we talk about which ones might help them the most. So we perhaps look to set them up with a career coach so that they can have some coaching to identify those transferable skills and which other areas of work that they might be able to explore with those skills. And we also have volunteer placements with us at Astriid and also with some other companies that we work with, so that people can get experience in other fields of work and some skills in other areas that they can then use that for their CV. Training is another big thing that we look to do with our candidates, and it can just be a refresh of people's IT skills. If people have been out of work for quite a while and they feel a bit rusty with their IT and they're not sure how to use Zoom and Teams, and let's face it, who does really? But we can give them a bit of training in how to get back into the workplace and use IT in that way. But then we also work in partnership with a lot of training companies to do vocational training and retraining for candidates in various different aspects. And I know it's something that Astriid is looking to expand. I know Steve works very hard to generate these partnerships. So because we understand that retraining is a big aspect of getting back into the workplace for a lot of our candidates. So that's something else we look to do. And we also have CV buddies. So once you've got that idea of where you want to go and what your skills are, they can help you rework your CV to make it more versatile, to make it more skills-based, so that you can pitch for different types of work that are different to what you've done before. And they also have skills in interview training, so they can coach people in interview skills. And they also are quite whizzy with LinkedIn. Apparently this is how it all happens these days. I'm too old to understand it, but these days a lot of networking and job opportunities are available on LinkedIn, apparently. So they can help you set up a LinkedIn profile and make the best use of that. And we also have quite a lot of resources on our website and on our social media, and we can also advise people if they're thinking about starting their own business, perhaps if that self-employment might be for them, and we can give them advice about funding for businesses and how to run a business. And the other aspect that we cover is we can give people benefits advice as well, because a lot of our candidates come to us within the chronic illness community who are maybe not getting the benefits they're entitled to. They're not, that they've been a bit put off from applying for the benefits. So we give them some advice about whether they might be able to apply for benefits to support them while they're looking for work.
That's amazing. It's such a range of stuff that you guys do there. Really, it's kind of looking after people every step of the way, isn't there? Because, like I say, you've got your career coaching, you've got your CV, you've got your technology stuff. If people aren't ready for work, there's volunteer placements. You know, it really is kind of a whole package for anybody ready at any stage, you know, to come back at any stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third sort of type of person, just to quickly mention them, are very young people who are right at the beginning of their careers, and maybe their schooling has been interrupted by chronic illness, or maybe they have managed to get GCSEs or possibly a degree, but now they're wondering how they get into the world of work when they can't really do a 9-to-5 job, how they get the work experience to put on a CV. So we also support those, and obviously the volunteer placements and the training that we offer is really valuable for them, because it can give them the chance to get that stuff to put on a CV to start their career. Yeah,
massively, because you wouldn't necessarily think about that group of people first. You know, I have spoken to a number of parents, you know, via our you know, that have got in touch with our charity for kind of advice on their children, you know, teenagers who, you know, chronic fatigue, haven't spent much time at school. So it absolutely is a thing that, you know, parent carers of those with Lyme disease should be aware of, because I'm sure that it is a problem for some. And I know, you know, we briefly touched on in the blog about the wellness side of things. I think that's relatively new. But yeah, it'd be great if you could just, I can see it's on the little circle there, but if you could tell us a bit more about that, that'd be fab.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we sort of worked through with our candidates and met more and more of our candidates, it became obvious really that it wasn't enough to just match people up with jobs and send them on their way, because as we all know, the chronic illness experience is really quite traumatic, and a lot of our candidates have been through some very difficult experiences with their illness, but also in relation to the workplace. The workplace is not necessarily a very kind environment to people with chronic illness, and so a lot of people have had bad experiences at work, not had the support they needed, perhaps been dismissed because of their health problems, and so are understandably quite nervous about stepping back into the world of work and how to do that. And also, we all understand with chronic illness, a lot of us have been in the position where we worked in the past, sort of gave everything 150% and pushed through and overworked. And when you've got a chronic illness, it's not good to do that. And so there's some work to be done to make sure that people are going to be safe going back to work, and can manage their condition safely. The last thing we want to do is set people up with jobs which then trigger a flare and trigger them into, you know, a crisis again. So we do work with our candidates. There's confidence coaching to help people build their confidence up. There's personal development coaching to help people overcome any emotional issues that they have around working, and to feel more stronger and more emotionally, you know, supported to be able to face going back into the world of work, and how to work safely, tips about pacing and how to manage the work-life balance safely with a chronic illness to avoid people becoming poorly again when they work. And we also are putting together a range of peer support groups. So a lot of our candidates talk about how isolated they feel and how lonely they feel with their chronic illness. And some of the candidates that I speak to say that I'm the only other person with a chronic illness that they've ever spoken to, and who really understands what they're going through. So we're putting together a network of candidate supports groups virtually online, so people can chat to people who are in a similar situation, perhaps with similar conditions, and they can support each other in that way.
Yeah, that's fab. I'm sure that'd be useful. God, I can't believe that the whole person must have felt so isolated from everything. You know, I get so used to speaking to you know, people that are part of forums or in touch with the charity. It's you know, devastating to think that there are people out there, but of course there are. You know,
we've had situations, Rosie, where people have given us a testimonial after being helped by Astriid, and I remember one young lady, cerebral palsy was her issue, her health issue, and we were able to help her through a program of coaching and support to get a job. She had a job already, but it was a retail job. It involved her working in a kiosk. They gave her a chair, but she was sitting in the draftiest place of the shop, and yeah, the result was really damaging for her health. And she came to us and said, "Look, I'd really like to get involved with Astriid, but I've tried charities like this before. They've always told me I need to be unemployed before they can help me." is what's the situation with you? And I said, well, no, absolutely not. You know, you don't have to be unemployed. You can be somebody, as we were saying earlier, is starting on their journey of a career, somebody who's quite late on in their career, somebody who wants to change career. None of those are conditions at all that mean that people can't join us. So yeah, anyone is welcome to come and talk to us at any stage.
That's great. And you touched on it briefly there, but Deborah, I think, but what about the support, you know, after people return to work? And sorry, just before you answer, just say thank you for the questions that are coming through. I have clocked them, and as mentioned before, we'll pick up on those in a moment. So thank you. And if anybody else listening has any more, do feel free to send them through. But yes, so as you touched on it briefly, but do you have anything further to add in terms of what support you offer for those, you know, once you place them in work or volunteering or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obviously we realise that that's not the end of the process, and it's important that candidates still have support, and also the employer has support as well to make sure that that placement is going to be successful. And as Steve said, a lot of our candidates do come to us in work, and we support them into changing career into something that's more suitable if the job that they're in at the moment is not good for their health. But then once they're in their new job, that support can continue. We don't say goodbye to any of our candidates. They stay in touch with us, and we regularly check in. And if they have problems and issues, they can always come back to Astriid. Their candidate coordinator will always be their candidate coordinator. We love to hear from our candidates and how they're doing when they're away in the workplace. And we like to know if they're okay, and if they're not okay, and they can come back to us at any time, and we can see what we can do to support them at that point. Absolutely.
Very, very quick story, if I may, Rosie.
Yeah, of course.
We had a lady that we helped. She was a nurse, worked in the NHS, developed breast cancer, couldn't be a nurse anymore, came to us, and after she'd gone through a surgery and a program of chemotherapy, and said, look, how can you help me? I want to retrain. I want to use the skills I've got. I understand technology, and I think I'm quite a good project manager. Can you help me? And we got her a job. We got her a job working in a hygiene company, where she became a project manager and actually headed training. It was a one-year contract. She did the contract for a year. It ended in March of last year, just at the time that the pandemic was hitting, and her contract wasn't renewed. She'd enjoyed the job. They'd enjoyed having her, but as it turned out, she actually needed some more surgery anyway. So it was probably reasonably good timing. So back in the summer, 3 months later, she got back in touch again and said, well, look, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but you've helped me once. I'd love to get another job. I'm feeling stronger. I'd like to work again. And we got talking about what sort of project management job it would be and what sort of technology company it would be. And after a while of trying her at sort of 0.6 on Deborah's chart there, trying to connect her with jobs, she was looking at them and saying, well, you know what, actually, none of these things really are that appealing. And so I turned the conversation around to one of saying, well, okay, well, what are you interested in, Claire? What do you want to do? What's the thing that really drives you? What are you passionate about? And she said, well, the thing I'm really passionate about is cheese. Okay, cheese. So you can use your project management skills and cheese. And she'd been in sales and marketing, cheese. She's got a sister who lived nearby and was working, running a wine business. So cheese and wine obviously went together. Loved her sister, wanted to work with her sister. So we coached her and helped her to set up her own business. And she's written to me tonight. She says, I can't wait to see you. Queen of Cheese, as she calls herself. She's based in Birmingham. She's in Sturchley in Birmingham. She's set up a mobile cheese and fizz emporium. So it's a mobile van that her uncle bought for her that she's fitted out, and then she starts trading in August. I don't know what she's calling the business, but it's not Queen of Cheese, but I call it.
I don't know, maybe it should be. It sounds like a good name to me, but that's such a great story.
But it's just an example of someone who's been helped, but we're not formulaic about it. You know, because you've been a project manager before, you don't have to.
It doesn't mean you have to do that again. It's
absolutely, and it's about
wherever your skills, desires.
It's transferable skills as much as anything, Rosie. It's understanding that as a nurse, as a practitioner, as a project manager, as a head of training, she had a whole range of skills, but then what she was passionate about just happened to be something that she'd love to work in. And yeah, we've got her there. So she credits us with having had that conversation with her, with having made her think afresh about her career. She's 50 years old, but it was time for her to do something she really wanted to do. So Claire Dyson, the Queen of Cheese in Birmingham.
Excellent example. Thank you for sharing. So, Steve, what about kind of future plans for Astriid? Do you have any kind of, future initiatives that, anything in the planning or anything that you...
Building on what Deborah said, we find that an increasing number of people, and I'm guessing it's 4 to 1, it's about 80% of people come to us and they're not work ready. They know, they have an idea what they want to do, they've got some skills, they've got some transferable skills, they may have a reasonably credible CV, but they just don't really know what they want to do. So we found that increasingly we need to provide training solutions to individuals, but rather than just training them on something they might be interested in or something that might be relevant, we've taken a view instead that if we talk to employers and companies, what are the skills that they're missing? What are the things they're looking for that they'd love to see embodied in their future employees? What can't they simply get enough of by way of skills? So our training programs have started with technology. They won't always be technology, but we've got a program for cybersecurity. We've got a program for data and analytics. We've got ways of helping people with digital marketing. We've taken the skills that companies say they want. So then our candidate community, if we can equip them with those programs, those skill sets that build on those transferable skills and then make them more rounded as an individual and then present them to those companies, that's the aim. So our objective is to understand what those requirements are, source the training programs, and the little money that we have, we then use to devote to developing the right type of training to give to those candidates. So there's around about 20 people going through training programs at the moment with us. And they are those courses, they're cybersecurity, they're data and analytics courses, because we recognize that those are the skills that businesses want. And if you're somebody who's got a technical bent, if you've got experience in an area, and they're not just dip in and dip out courses, these will take 3 months to do, between 3 and 4 months. The cybersecurity course is accredited by GCHQ. So it's a proper training course with proper skills. So we can then present the individual to the company and say, here we are, a member of the invisible talent pool, managing a health condition, works 3 days a week, but is available to you as a cybersecurity analyst. And we've already placed one guy into the London School of Economics. He's been working there, another guy with cerebral palsy actually, working in their data security department. And we're very close to putting a second one in there as well. So yeah, it's not just shooting in the dark with skills and training that may or may not be relevant. It's understanding what the market needs and where the market's going in order to find the courses and the training that will give our candidates the skills they need. And that would be our vision and our aim of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, sounds fab. So perhaps let's go to a couple of the questions that have come in. So 2 of them are kind of along a similar line, and people wanting to know exactly where this program is available. So is it UK only, or are you able to provide support to those in the Republic of Ireland and even the United States? I think we have had a question about. So who is the service for? Who can you help?
Yeah, we've started in the UK, and whilst we might have hoped by now to have extended outside the UK, the pandemic's really pushed us back a year. So what I'm very keen to do is to make sure that our service, and you see an example of it on that chart, but our service is as watertight as it can be, as successful as it can be. We've placed, as a result of today, we've placed 57 people into either paid or voluntary work in our time of running. But we want to make that a much bigger number to show and to know that we can do this at scale. That will be the point that we'll internationalize. So your question about Ireland, well, Ireland probably is possible. One of the things that would be an impediment is we need a UK address to register somebody. So if the person from Ireland has got a UK address they could use, that would be okay, but it might just create 1 or 2 complications downstream. But I think we have got a number of people from the Republic, certainly from Northern Ireland, that's in the UK anyway, but from the Republic of Ireland, I think we probably do have a few candidates who might be available for jobs that are completely remote and completely flexible. I'm afraid the news is less good from the States perspective. We don't have an operation in the States yet. We've had lots of requests for that. This is a global problem. And the US, given the language, will be one of the first places where we will look to expand. But I'm sorry to say we are the only charity that we've come across that does what we do.
And worldwide?
globally, unbelievably.
Yeah, because I was going to say, you know, do you know of an equivalent service in the US? But it doesn't sound like there is one.
There's not many. There's one or two that have been sent to us, which are either very closed because they work in a very specific geography, like town. But there are others that focus on specific illnesses. In France, there is a Cancer on Travail program, which deals with just people who've got a cancer diagnosis. But because we are agnostic in terms of the illness or the diagnosis, and we incorporate carers into our program, that's what makes us unique. But I believe there is a program that we've come across in the US. If the individual who needs to know the answer to that would like to get in touch with me, then I will dig that information out and can supply that. But that's about the only help I think I can give to somebody who's based internationally.
No, I'm sure they'll be really grateful for that. So how should they get in touch with you?
So steve.schutz, SHUTTS, at astriid.org, and Astriid has
pop it in the I'll just pop it in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
So that's steve.schutz at astriid.org.
Twoeyes.org. Yeah.
There we go. So if the person wants to pick that up from chat, they're welcome to.
Thank you.
So next question. One of the worries I have in starting to get back to work is of giving up benefits that have been enormously traumatic to get in the first place. I'm desperate not to rely on benefits, but what if I start something and can't sustain it or can't earn as much as I need to be financially independent? My fear is I wouldn't be able to manage without, and the worst case scenario is that I would need to reapply and how long that would take again. Are you able to advise on navigating all of these things?
Yeah, so
Deborah like to answer? Yeah, go on, Deborah.
Yeah, we have several people who work with Astriid who are quite expert at navigating the benefits system, and obviously that question comes up quite regularly in terms of what can I do without losing my benefits, and when you can take that step, and how is it safe to take that step between benefits and work. And they can offer some advice about that, and they can explain what is permissible within the benefits system and what isn't, so that we can make sure that any voluntary work, for example, that we could set them up with, or any training that they do, is not going to jeopardize their benefits. So that information, yeah, we can offer some advice about that. Certainly.
I think my answer to that sort of question is always to absolutely consider voluntary working first, because it just gives you, it works on a number of levels. I mean, you do need to tell, in the UK, you do need to tell your caseworker at the DWP that you're volunteering. There's a form to fill in, and that form, which we can help you with, but just requires you to say why you're volunteering, what you're planning to do, how much time, and so on. But the thing about volunteering is it gives you an opportunity to test the water to an extent. I mean, we run in the charity a number of volunteers. I don't want anyone to volunteer for us and let us down on every occasion. But if you've got a volunteer working with you, you are much more lenient and much more aware of their situation, and therefore prepared that people who volunteer aren't always ready or available when they say they will be. There's a leniency, I think, from both sides in terms of the relationship. But what it does for people is it gives them some work experience. It gives them a toe back in the water again. It gives them a chance to build something up, to put something on their CV, to maybe get a reference, or to maybe turn the volunteer job into a paid job once they know that it's the right thing for them. But to, as Deborah says, we do provide help. We're not a benefits advisors. We're not legally able to give you legal advice on those things. What we do is we help people, perhaps just like you, who want to make the transition into work. We help you with providing benefits, advice, and guidance that supports you on that journey. We're not just here to try and answer benefits questions for people who frankly don't feel that work is the right answer for them. So it's we try and be good at what we can do, rather than try and boil the ocean and do what everyone else can do, perhaps better than we can.
Okay, Fab, thank you for answering that one. So next one, I just recently registered and you sound exactly what I need. I know there's a wait for the support. Can you give any indication how long the wait time is for support to start? So I guess maybe a kind of rough timeline of, how it takes from registration online to, step by step would perhaps be helpful.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is Go on, Deborah.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that you're waiting, and we do know that people are waiting. We are quite a small team. There's just a few of us in the candidate coordinator team. And so what happens when you register, your name gets put on our list, and we're working our way down that list as quickly as we can to make sure that everybody gets their call as soon as we're able to. So it can take a few weeks, and I am really sorry about that, but the waiting list is getting shorter. We are working our way through it. So hopefully you will get a call from one of us soon. The first thing that happens is an email. So if you keep an eye on your emails, sometimes they go into people's spam folders as well. So please do check your spam folder, and you will get an email from one of us candidate coordinators inviting you to have a phone chat with us and some dates when we can do that. So once you get that email, you'll get some dates when you can book in to have your initial chat, and that's when the process would start. So hopefully it shouldn't be too much longer.
Thanks, Deborah. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen now and just bring us back. Does anybody else have any other questions? Anybody else that's listening that you want to pop in the chat and Q&A? I'll give everybody just, first, a minute or so to do that in case there's anything else that they would like to ask. Deborah and Steve, was there anything else?
One of the things I was just going to say, that in terms of what's happening in the marketplace, we're in a situation where for a year or so we had virtually no jobs being posted. We were going to companies and looking for any opportunity at all to share with our candidates, and that was due to the pandemic. Since I would say March, maybe it's April, that situation has changed. And we are in a situation at the moment where we've actually got probably more jobs open to us that need filling than we have candidates who are looking for opportunities right now who are work ready. So it is a terrific time to get in touch with us, particularly if you're one of those individuals who's thinking that they are work ready, who does have a reasonably clear sense of what they want to do, who maybe has a CV that supports that as well. If you haven't got those things, we're going to help you anyway. It's not a condition of being helped, but if you happen to be somebody who's looking for work or looking for a change of work right now, I would say it's a very good time to be in touch with us. And it's referred to on the chart we had up there, but there's a fortnightly, I'm just about to make it weekly, email that's going to come out that takes all of the best flexible and remote jobs that we can find in the UK and shares that as well with all the contact details of where to go. So as well as having jobs posted with us through Astriid, we also take jobs off the marketplace as well and just let people know that they exist in case they've missed them. It's a very good time to be looking for to get a job at the moment. Yeah.
And also, I mean, Steve, you mentioned the sort of 57 people that have been matched, and that's with us, with our jobs. But obviously the process that we go through with our candidates, a lot of our candidates are job hunting themselves and going to interviews, and they get, they're able to become successful in their job hunt themselves through the support that Astriid is offering. So there's there's more people that have got a job through that process and we support into work than that figure, I think, kind of indicates really. But there are matches, aren't they, with our jobs? Yeah. But obviously anybody can come to us and get the support with getting a CV and getting some career coaching and a bit of voluntary work, and then they quite often find work out in the world themselves through that process.
Young man wrote to us today, didn't he, Deborah? Daniel from Cardiff, who's got a job. He's been coached by one of our coaches, been helped and supported with his CV, with interview practice. And he wrote to us today to say he's just been given a job, paid job with Mind, with the mental health charity. Which is brilliant. So we've celebrated that success, shared that note across the whole team, because everyone's played a part in that in some form or other. So when you have days like today, he's one of two actually today that we've heard about that have been placed into jobs. So every time we hear that, it's a mini fist pump and a celebration.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Well, that feels like an excellent note to end it on. So I don't think we've had any more questions coming through, but obviously everyone knows where to find you. Today's session, if you missed any part of it, is going to be, or has been recorded, and it will be sent through to everybody that registered via email. We'll also share on our social media. but yeah, just again want to extend my thanks to Steve and Deborah, and for everybody that's tuned in today, engaged, asked questions. I hope that you found it both useful but also inspiring, and you know, perhaps giving a little bit of hope that there is, you know, there is help to get you where you need to be. So yeah, as I say, thanks again to Deborah and Steve, and yeah, have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you very much, Rosie. You managed us very well, and well done, Deborah. This was Deborah's first webinar, by the way. So
yeah, she did absolutely fab. You would never have known.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you very much for having us, Rosie. It's been great.
You're very welcome. All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.